we're tackling a big subject. It's mental wellness. We want to talk about mental health issues and particularly the importance of finding someone to talk to. That's why I'm excited that today I get to talk to one of my favorite people, Dr. Gina Hudnall.
Yeah, Dr. Gina.
Dr. Hudnall has over 15 years of psychological experience in counseling. She's actually a graduate with a master's and doctorate from Ball State University. She's the director of the Total Wellness Assessment Clinic Counseling Center, and she's authored over 30 books or co-authored over 30 articles. She provides and leads a staff that helps provide over 6,000 clinical service hours each year. Today, we get the privilege of picking her brain for just a moment. Again, help me welcome Dr. Gina Hudnall.
Dr. Gina.
Well, Gina, we've talked about this, how big of a subject this is, and we know that there's some hesitancy around it. But today, we want to encourage people about the importance of talking to someone. So let's start at the top with some of our questions. And that is, all right, if I'm looking for somebody, what's the difference between a counselor and a therapist?
Sure, that's a great question. So typically the level of education and the specialty is the difference between what a counselor and therapist is. So typically you'll find a counselor in a school setting, or you'll find like a licensed chemical dependency counselor in an agency. If you're looking for someone to do some individual therapy, then you're gonna look for a therapist, and they're gonna practice pretty much in the community. We often also get the question of what's the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist. A psychiatrist prescribes your medication and will do a brief check-in, but a psychologist is the one that will work with you and walk with you through your mental health journey and will teach you the tips and tools.
Well, finding someone who will actually do the walking with you is so important, and I believe in it. I think it's no secret. I believe in the importance of finding a good therapist.
Me too.
A lot of people think, well, I'd love to, but isn't that for somebody who's going through a crisis? Not necessarily.
Right.
Everybody could benefit from using one. So the question is, who should see a therapist?
Everyone should see a therapist. Everyone. You're right, mental health was the picture of somebody who's downtrodden, in a crisis, can't get out of bed, or not taking a shower. Really, everyone could benefit from just someone to talk to get out of our head. Someone to just kind of help us process through some things and make sure that we're thinking about things in a broad perspective and just teach us some tips and tools. So mental health is all spectrums, and I really like to call it mental wellness to make it a little bit less stigmatizing.
Absolutely, I agree with that. For over 20 some odd years, I've seen a therapist and had a number of different therapists in different seasons of life. And I think all of them were effective in some capacity. But I think for many people, it's challenging because that seems a little intimidating, finding a therapist, just starting the process. Because maybe somebody is saying, all right, I'll go see somebody. Now, the question is, how do I find that therapist?
Great question. So if you're using insurance, typically you want to turn your insurance card over. And the back usually has a behavioral health number. It's a 1-800 number. Your primary benefits may be Cigna, but your mental health may be carried by somebody else. So that's why you really want to turn that card over and call the 1-800 number in the back, and they'll give you a list of everybody in your network. You also can do a quick Google search if there's something specific that you're looking for. But there's also a website called Psychology Today that has a lot of pictures and profiles and people who take different insurance carriers. So if you're looking for a little bit more detail, then Psychology Today would be a good way to go.
So I'm going to Psychology Today. I'm doing the Google search. I find that person. And again, I've had a couple of therapists. It took me a minute before I got to the one I really, really like. But then you find that one, and you know when you find them, how long should I stay with them?
I think you stay with them until they don't fit anymore, or until the season changes. Like in the wintertime, we wear our boots. In the summertime, we wear our flip-flops. During the season where you need boots, then you wear your boots. But in the season where you need a therapist with a little bit of different expertise or a little bit of different perspective, or perhaps your problem has changed, so you need somebody who does a little bit of a different specialty, then you find somebody else that's a good fit for you. We don't abandon therapy, we just find the right fit for you. And sometimes you have to go through a couple of pair of boots or shoes to find the ones that fit well, but you don't ever abandon therapy. You just keep going until you find the right person.
Absolutely. So, listen, we've gone through this pandemic, and one of the neglected demographics is our children. And unfortunately, we see the statistics rising on a daily basis of children that are suffering or dealing with mental health issues. How important, mental wellness challenges, how important is it for them to see someone?
It's hugely important. Unfortunately, we are having such an uptick in suicide attempts in our kids, and Black and brown kids as well, just across the board. And we're having an uptick in those who are completing the suicides. So it's important to make sure your kids early on see someone, just to make sure everything is okay. Just because your kid is quiet, your kid is going to school, your kid is not causing a lot of problems, doesn't mean your kid may not be struggling. We need to pay attention. Oftentimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but it's that quiet wheel that you really have to pay attention to, because that's the person who's suffering in silence.
So on that, some grandparent, some parent, and they've got their children, grandchildren, what are some of those signs that they should be looking for, saying, hey, something is not quite right here?
Mm-hmm.